This is VOA News via remote. I'm Diane Roberts. Minnesota's Attorney General upgrades charges against one former police officer and files charges against three others in the death of George Floyd. AP correspondent Tim McGuire reports.
Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison says former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin is now charged with unintentional second-degree murder and second-degree manslaughter for kneeling on George Floyd's neck before he died on May 25th. Three other now former officers, Thomas Lane, Kueng and Tou Thao, have all been charged with aiding and abetting Chauvin. Ellison says he can't talk much about the case.
Our job is to seek justice and to obtain a conviction, not to make statements in the press, but to do our talking in court.
If convicted, each of the four could face up to 40 years in prison. I'm Tim McGuire.
U.S. Secretary of Defense Mark Esper has abruptly reversed an earlier decision to send home some active-duty troops from Washington. They arrived to help protest over Floyd's death. AP Sagar Magani reports.
Some 1,300 troops had been sent here as protests turned violent. Army Secretary Ryan McCarthy tells the AP the Pentagon decided this morning to send home about 200 of them. Hours later, he was told Esper reversed the decision after a visit to the White House. It's unclear if Esper talked with President Trump while there. There's growing tension between the Pentagon and the White House about the military response to the protests. This morning, Esper had tamped down the president's threats to use active-duty troops to dominate the streets.
The option to use active-duty forces in a law enforcement role should only be used as a matter of last resort.
McCarthy says he thinks the shift on sending some home is to ensure there is enough capability on hand in case violence flares up. Sagar Magani, Washington.
This is VOA News. Greg Floyd's arrest was captured on cell phone video and showed a white officer with a knee on the black man's neck for nearly 9 minutes before he died. It's led to protests in the U.S. and worldwide against police brutality and in support of racial justice. Condemnations have come with the protests. The top United Nations human rights official called on U.S. leaders Wednesday to, quote, condemn racism unequivocally and take actions that truly tackle inequalities in the country. In a statement, Michelle Bachelet cited, quote, credible reports of unnecessary and disproportionate use of force by U.S. law enforcement officers. She cited at least 200 reported incidents against journalists during protests. With more than 1.8 million coronavirus infections, the U.S. has more cases than anywhere else in the world. There have been more than 107,000 COVID-19 deaths in the United States. Worldwide, nearly 6.4 million people have been infected, and more than 383,000 of them have died. Nearly 2.8 million people worldwide have recovered from the respiratory illness. At least 3 people are reported dead as coronavirus hit Mumbai, appears to have escaped the worst of Cyclone Nisarga Wednesday, the first severe storm to threaten India's financial capital in more than 70 years. Authorities had evacuated at least 100,000 people, including coronavirus patients, from flood-prone areas ahead of the storm's arrival. The cyclone ripped roofs off buildings in nearby coastal towns, but appeared to have left the sprawling, crowded port megacity of Mumbai largely unscathed. The last deadly storm to hit the city was in 1948. Crowds of young people in Senegal's holy city of Touba torched an ambulance, threw rocks, and looted office buildings late Tuesday, protesting restrictions imposed over the coronavirus, authorities said. The country's second city is a major pilgrimage destination and trading hub, headquarters of a powerful Sufi Muslim brotherhood whose founder is buried at shrine there. Its economy has been hard hit by emergency measures to contain the epidemic. Regional travel has been banned since late March, and mosques and weekly markets were closed, although they have been allowed to reopen since. Thursday, Hong Kong will lead global remembrance of China's deadly Tiananmen crackdown, with people lighting candles in neighborhoods across the city after authorities banned a mass vigil because of the coronavirus. Open discussion of the brutal suppression is forbidden inside China, where hundreds, by some estimates more than 1,000, died when the Communist Party sent tanks June 4th, 1989, to crush a student-led demonstration in Beijing calling for democratic reforms. But Hong Kong has kept alive memories for the last 3 decades by holding a huge annual vigil in a park, the only place inside China where it's allowed. By remote, Diane Roberts, VOA News.